Good afternoon, children. So, today I'm going to introduce a new writer to you, William Shakespeare. You must have heard his name. He is one of the greatest playwrights in the history of drama. He used to write in English, and the kind of English that he used to write in was called Elizabethan English because when he was there, Queen Elizabeth was the ruler of England, not the Elizabeth. Elizabeth I was the ruler of England, and it had a very different kind of words, that English. However, most of your modern English also comes from there. So, Shakespeare's birthday happens to fall on 26th of April. That's why we'll celebrate William Shakespeare for this week and for some weeks to come ahead, right? Now, the book that I'm going to read to you by William Shakespeare today is Macbeth. Now, this book is written in Old English, all right? But what I'm going to read to you is a book which will suit you as children, and it has beautiful illustrations. So we'll keep on seeing the illustrations in between. All right. But first, let me read from the old book. And do you know that William Shakespeare's plays are still performed everywhere in the world? In fact, the Globe Theatre in London still performs his plays. All right. So let me start with Macbeth. It's a great tragedy that he wrote. Tragedy is a sorrowful play. All right. Act 1, Scene 1. Thunder and lightning. Enter three witches. Which one? When shall we meet again in thunder, lightning, or rain? Second witch. When the hurly-burly is done, when the battle's lost and won. Third witch. That will be ere the set of sun. First witch. Where the place? Second witch, upon the heath. Third witch, there to meet with Macbeth. First witch, I come, Grey Malcolm. Second witch, Paddock calls. Third witch, anon. All of them. Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and fill the air, and they vanish in thin air. Now, this is not what I'm going to read to you because you may not have understood this. So we'll take an easier version. This beautifully illustrated book for children called Macbeth. This is a Scottish tale of Macbeth. I hope you can see the illustrations. Right? Alright. So when Scotland was invaded by the Irish and Norwegian armies, Scottish King Duncan's brave generals, Macbeth and Banquo, defeated them. As the two warriors returned home, they met three witches, who predicted that Macbeth would be the Thane of Cawdor and then King of Scotland. So the three witches, and this is Macbeth, and this is Banquo. So they met them on their way, and it was thunder and lightning, as we read in the Old English book. And you may be wondering, Thane of Cawdor. Cawdor is a place, and Thane means a feudal lord, a baron, a kind of a duke. But they also predicted that Banquo would never be king and his heirs will rule over Scotland. So the witches also foretold that Banquo would never ever become king. But his descendants, his heirs, they would be the rulers of Scotland. Saying this, the witches vanished. Macbeth and Banquo did not take their prophecies very seriously and they just traveled on. Prophecies are the things they foretold, the things they said. I hope these pictures are clear. Alright. So they were greeted with great pomp, and King Duncan's men informed Macbeth that he had been made Thane of Cawdor for his bravery. King Duncan also sent a message that he would visit Inverness, Macbeth's castle, that night. So King Duncan also would come and meet Macbeth. Will I be crowned king? Macbeth started to think. At Inverness, the ambitious Lady Macbeth learnt about the prophecies, about the things that were to come true, about the things that the witches said, and was determined that her husband should become the king. So she wanted Macbeth to become the king. So ambition. The king has to be murdered, she insisted, and convinced Macbeth to kill Duncan while he was asleep. We shall get the chamberlains drunk and blame them for the murder. So she said, we'll get the king's attendants drunk and we'll say that they committed the murder. She plotted. She hatched a conspiracy. Macbeth was haunted by doubts and supernatural visions, but managed to do the deed. Although he had a lot of doubts, he had a lot of superstitions, a lot of supernatural things coming and telling him this would happen, that would happen, but still he went ahead and he murdered King Duncan. He stabbed Duncan in his sleep after the king's chamberlains had passed out. After Duncan's body was discovered as planned, Macbeth killed the chamberlains. Fearing for their lives, Duncan's sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, ran away to England and Macbeth ascended the throne. He became the king. He ascended the throne. Ascending numbers, rising, he rose to the throne. But Macbeth was still worried about the witch's prophecy that Banquo's heirs would rule over Scotland. She said Macbeth would never be the king and Banquo would never be the king, right? Macbeth hired murderers who attacked Banquo and Fleance as they travelled to attend the royal feast. Feast is a party. Alright, so he has hired murderers. Banquo was killed, but Fleance escaped. He ran away. Escaped. Banquo's ghost visited the feast that night, but only Macbeth could see him. Nobody apart from Macbeth could see the ghost. A scared Macbeth ranted on and on to the gathering. So he kept on speaking nonsensically, shocking his guests who now suspected Macbeth's hand in the murders. They started suspecting Macbeth. Lady Macbeth tried to reassure the guests, but she was unsuccessful. She tried to tell them that everything was hunky-dory, nothing was wrong, but nobody would listen to her. On facing opposition from the Scottish nobility, nobility means the ministers and the dukes and the barons, and his subjects, all the people of Scotland, Macbeth visited the witches and received further prophecies. So he again went to the witches. Beware of Macduff. The first witch said, Macbeth was a noble man who had opposed Macbeth as king. Beware means you be careful. You cannot be killed by any man who is born of a woman. The second witch predicted. So she said, any person who is born of a woman would not be able to kill you. You shall not be harmed until Burman Wood come to Dussenon Castle, the third witch said. I am safe, Macbeth thought. Nonetheless, I must kill Macbeth. Macbeth was furious when he learned that Macbeth had escaped to England to join Malcolm, seize his castle and kill his wife and children, Macbeth ordered. He was so afraid. He wanted everyone to be killed. A devastated Macbeth swore revenge on Macbeth. So, when everybody was killed, he was completely, Macbeth, was completely devastated. He was destroyed. His mental peace was gone. And he swore revenge. He wanted to take badla. He wanted to be vindictive on him. Meanwhile, Malcolm had raised an army in England, and Macbeth joined him to say they had marched towards Scotland to fight Macbeth's army. The Scottish nobles, who were tired of Macbeth's tyrannical means cruel rule, supported them. But as Macbeth became stronger, Lady Macbeth became weak and started to hallucinate. She started to dream all kind of weird things, even while awake. She saw blood stains on her hands where there were none and began to sleepwalk. So she would just hallucinate and start thinking that I have blood stains on my hand, although there were no blood stains. Just check your hands, children. Lady Macbeth finally committed suicide. She killed herself. Suicide means killing oneself. And Macbeth went into mourning. mourning. That is when you are into sorrow. When somebody dies in your family, so you go into mourning. But soon he recovered and got ready to meet Malcolm's army. So he would face Malcolm's army. He thought that the witches' prophecies had made him invincible. Invincible means that you could not win over him. He could not be vanquished. But he was shocked when he heard that Burman Wood was moving towards Dussenon. Actually, the English soldiers had shielded themselves with branches and leaves taken from the woods as they advanced. As they moved forward, they covered themselves with branches. Macbeth fought bravely against Malcolm's army, but they defeated Macbeth's forces and captured his castle. As Macbeth met Macduff in battle, he realized that the witches had tricked him. Macduff told him about how he was ripped, taken away, before time from his mother's body, and he was actually not born of a woman in the truest sense of the word. So he was not born of his mother. He was ripped off. He was taken away earlier. And look at this. The fight, the war, the battle. And remember what the witch say. Any man who is born of a woman would not be killed. Would not be able to kill you, Macbeth. But then, Macduff was not born of his mother. I am doomed, thought Macbeth. Doomed means I'm gone. My day is done. My time has come. I'm finished. Macbeth realized as he fought valiantly, very bravely, very courageously, till he was killed by Macduff. After Macbeth's death, Prince Malcolm was crowned King of Scotland at Scone amidst great celebrations throughout Scotland. Now you see, the blade of the sword during those times was very straight, especially the European swords. And the hilt was so big, the handle, the hilt. Alright? So, look at the helmets. Just see the helmets that they are wearing. And the armors that they are wearing. So, now this is where the story ends. And Macbeth was killed, right? And who became the king? Macbeth, right? No. Malcolm became the king. Now, I will read out in Old English the last scene that happened, the dialogue that transpired between Macbeth and Macduff. Now just see what you read right now and how it was different in Old Elizabethan English. So, Macbeth says, "Accursed be that tongue that tells me so, for it had cowed my better part of man. And be these juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in double sense, that keep the word of promise to our ear, and break it to our hope, I will not fight with thee." Macduff says, "Then yield thee, coward, and live to be the show and gaze of the time. We will have thee as a rare monsters are, printed upon a pole and under it. Here may you see the tyrant." So Macbeth says, "I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be baited with the rabble's curse, though Burnham would be come to Dessenon, and thou oppose being of no woman born, yet I will try the last. Before my body I throw my warlike shield, lay on Macduff, and damned be him that first cries, Hold enough! They fight to and fro beneath the castle wall, until at length Macbeth is slain." Now this you may not have understood, but you understood the story, I hope, right? So how Macbeth was killed by Macduff and how Malcolm became the king of England. So it all started with the witches' prophecies, and those prophecies, those foretellings by the witches came out to be true. So thus was William Shakespeare, and thus was his writing. And you saw that when he was writing in Old English, he was writing mostly in poetry, right? So his plays are fabulous. You can catch a glimpse of his plays here and there on YouTube itself, right? And if you ever get a chance to go to London, go to the Globe Theatre and watch any of these plays. So next time I will come up with another of Shakespeare's stories. Alright? See you. Bye-bye. And have a good weekend ahead. Read as much as you can. Thank you, children. Thanks a lot.